Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're going to have a bit of a discussion, and what we're going to talk about is the most dangerous knives out there. And I want to invite you guys right away to share with me your stories down below of a time where a knife has been particularly dangerous to you. I'd love to hear, you don't need to go into too much detail, but a brief description of, what happened, how it happened, why that knife was especially dangerous would be a really, really interesting read. I think not only for me, but for everybody else. So if you're also watching this, go down and check the comments. You might find some interesting stories down there. The other thing I want to say by way of introduction is this is not going to be what you think. I think often people think of a dangerous knife and they may think of a karambit or a machete, or maybe they think of a push dagger or, a stiletto or an out the front automatic or something like that. And the fact is, none of those knives that look scary, that look dangerous, even make the list. Okay, they're just not that dangerous in real life. But in fact, the opposite is what you will find. The most common, benign, everyday knives are the ones that are the most dangerous. And we'll talk about that, beginning with the number one most dangerous knife. And this is number one in terms of actual knives used purposefully to hurt or injure people, and it is the lowly kitchen knife. Kitchen knives are the most used knives for crimes. They're the most common knives in stabbings and murders. And I think most of you can probably guess at this, but we should just have a brief little discussion of why that is. And of course, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, they're everywhere, right? So any street thug who wants to get a knife or get a weapon and use it to accost someone, the most immediately available weapon is going to be in their kitchen drawer. They're going to reach in, they're going to grab it. The other thing is, a kitchen knife is super duper cheap. You can walk into Walmart or even Dollarama and find a kitchen knife for a few dollars, and now you have a weapon that's actually capable of doing quite a bit of damage. And I think there's actually a story of a woman who did that. She went into like a Walmart, bought a kitchen knife, opened the package, and just started stabbing people in Walmart. Now, she was clearly not mentally all there, but the fact is that a kitchen knife is the most dangerous because they're the most widely available. They're easy to acquire. They're easy to dispose of. A kitchen knife, there's so many of them out there that trying to, narrow it down or to do anything forensically with a kitchen knife is pretty difficult. And of course, they're constantly in use. How many of you watching this video have had a kitchen knife in your hand already today and will probably have one in your hand a couple more times? Maybe you made breakfast or lunch and now you're going to make supper later. Like, we use them all the time. And it's, while you're using that, there's a lot of crimes of passion that take place. And so that instant access to a knife, it's the kitchen knife that you're most likely going to have. All right. Now, I have to point out, actually, I'm going to save this supplemental point for the next point. So what is the second most dangerous knife? Well, the second most dangerous knife is the pocket knife. So this, of course, is the Chris Reeve Knives Inkosi. We'll throw in the Riot Torrent as well, just as representative pocket knives here. But pocket knives are second. However, they're not high in terms of crime use. All right, what they are most common in fact, so this is kind of number one most dangerous knife in the second category. So the first category, number one, committing crimes, committing murder, stabbing someone, that's far and away a kitchen knife. Now, the second category that we would want to think about is accidental injuries. And accidental injuries, pocket knives are number one. And why is that? Again, I think there's some pretty simple explanations here. Number one, again, they're widely available. Many people have them, but the reason they're more common in injuries. Now, by the way, let me point out, they're regarded more common in injuries only. The counting only takes into consideration ER visits. Okay, so follow me here for a second. Statistically, kitchen knives are statistically, folding knives are the most common knives in injuries. However, Think about what we've just been saying about kitchen knives, okay, and about the fact that these statistics only include those injuries that are submitted to an ER because, of course, how could they, when you cut yourself and put a band-aid on it, you don't tell anyone. There's no record of there's no record keeping, so there can be no statistics of, just random knife injuries. However, because kitchen knives are so prolific and because they're so often used, I'm going to submit that still, even though the folding knife is technically, statistically, the most common knife to cause injuries, I would still say a kitchen knife, if it just came down to cutting your finger and putting a band-aid on it, the kitchen knife has got to still be number one. All right, there's no statistical support for that, but I think common sense would clearly indicate that more people are going to be cut by kitchen knives, day to day than anything else, just because of sheer volume of users. All right, now move into injuries that actually required stitches that someone had to go to the doctor for. Now is where we sort of get to pocket knives. Okay, so why is it that pocket knives are recorded often in ER visits? Well, simply because, I guess there are a few reasons. One, because they fold. Okay, so even a knife with a strong locking mechanism, if you do something stupid when you're trying to open or close this, right, it could potentially cause an injury. So there's an extra degree of difficulty, right? This knife is not closing on you no matter what you do. It just cannot close on your fingers. So it's a little bit safer than a folding knife. Even with a strong locking mechanism, right? You could be the one who pushed the locking mechanism and stupidly close the knife on your hand. People, what did George Carlin said, think of how stupid the average person is and then realize that half of the people are more stupid than that, right? The very fact that this folds means it's going to cause some injuries. The other aspect, though, that we haven't yet considered is where, why, and how people use their pocket knives. So pocket knives are going to be used, you see people whittling, they're going to be used outdoors, they're going to be used in work-related tasks that are a little harder. Think about it. If you've got if you're working outside and you've got to cut a cord, you've got to cut a zip tie or a strap that's holding a bunch of lumber together, or any number of difficult materials, you're going to put a knife under there, you're going to have to pull it out. I posted a picture on Instagram. I may roll it in here. Forget it, I won't bother. But not that long ago, my son was cutting grass. He ran over a rope. Guess what I used to cut the rope out of the lawnmower blade? A folding knife, right? So we use them in awkward, difficult situations to cut awkward, difficult materials. And because of that, we're going to end up getting injured. All right. We're prying, we're stabbing, we're doing stuff, because we think of it as stronger and more capable. We're doing stuff that is a little more difficult, a little more awkward, and therefore more likely to cut someone. Now, I want to make a supplemental point here. So we're still only on number 2. First category is kitchen knives. Second category is folding knives. But let me suggest that knife laws contribute to this problem. And here's why. Probably the very safest knife to open and close would be an out the front automatic. Your hand comes nowhere near. So I've got a knife that I can use that I actually have here for a different reason, but let's grab my Olfa knife. Okay, so in opening and closing an out the front automatic, it's even easier than this. You push a button, boom, right here, or you actuate a button, and the blade comes out and the blade closes. Right, comes out, closes. So at what point in my use of this knife are my fingers, let's imagine I have a button here. So I push the button, boom, the blade comes out. Right? At no time is the blade anywhere near my fingers. I push the button again, the blade closes. At no point is the blade anywhere near my fingers. So in terms of opening and closing the knife, right, an automatic knife or an out the front automatic is very, very safe. Then you make your cut, you pop the knife back into the handle, and you're done. It's extremely safe and effective. Secondly, even a side opening automatic, okay, boom, I hit the button, the thing flies open, and now I make my cut. Now I do have to, shut this blade somehow, and various side opening automatics have different ways of doing that. But again, my fingers get to be nowhere near the closing blade. So there's a bit of an advantage again there that I get to take advantage, that I get to benefit from. But those knives that I specifically mentioned are not allowed. Oh, by the way, a side opening automatic is also going to lock up more reliably because it doesn't depend on human effort. So I can, I don't know if I can do it with this one. Let me try. Let's pretend I didn't get a good flip on this. So now my knife is partially open and I've got to do something to get that knife to open the rest of the way. There's a good chance that I cut myself doing that. But an automatic, even a side opening automatic, boom, I touch the button, it flips out hard and reliably and locks into place every time. So there's less risk of me accidentally shutting this thing on myself, which I think is a pretty substantial benefit. Now, let me get this out of the way because we're going to move on now to number 3. So full pocket knives are number 2 for injury. Next on the list, however, of injury is the utility knife. Now, this is a bit of a nicer one. It's an Olfa knife. It has a rubber coating. Let me complain just a little about this, though. This actually, I don't know if I can get it to do it. Anyway, this one's just worn out. So I've used this a whole lot, and this rubber handle will actually slip off of the metal insert, and so that kind of sucks. All right, I've tried. There's a little piece in there that's supposed to mechanically sort of fasten them together, and I've tried to put some extra tension on that, but again, I think we can understand why utility knives would be next on the list of injuries. And in fact, I'll tell you a story about this. I had a boss who, and I'm sure many of you who had a utility knife have done this. So the huge benefit of this, and I purposely put in the flexible blades, is I can put a little pressure on this, and now I can slide this along a surface and do some really, really good clean cutting. I had a boss. We were taking out a bathroom tub. He put his knife on the ground like this. He shoved it in under the caulking, and he was sliding it along the bottom of the tub like that. Now he had to push pretty hard, and he was really straining, and the knife let go, slipped out of popped out of the caulking, and he was pulling back so hard that when it popped out, the knife flew back and buried itself into, I'm using my arm as the example, but it buried itself into his leg, right inside, not that far from the femoral artery. So it could have been really, really bad. Luckily, it missed the artery, but still, that explains why utility knives are third on the list, because again of how prolific they are and because of what we use them for. We're always using them in a work situation where we're cutting something difficult, and I myself have had a few little accidents with utility knives. All right, they also break, so you can see all the ridges in there. That's designed so you can break the knife off and get a sharper edge. And again, that breaking process, I've had these break at an inopportune time and fly through the air, and not get cut, but recognize the potential for being cut. Okay, so those top 3 actually really round out the biggest of the issues here. However, there are a couple of other knives that I think have to be added to the list because they do contribute, and they are certainly dangerous knives. Number 4, knives with unreliable locks. Okay, we made this point a second ago, but I'll make it again, right? This knife is not going to fold on you. However, this knife, or this knife, or even this knife, despite the fact that it has a very strong, very capable lock, could fold on you. Not necessarily that the lock even fails, although some locks are more prone to failure, but we're going to now add this category that there are a ton of cheap, crappy folding knives out there that don't lock up properly. I've handled many of them. In fact, a few years ago when I first got on the fire department, I guess it's more than a few years ago now. I kind of forget how long I've been on. Um, our chief went out and bought, went to one of these places where they sell the labeled stuff, labeled shirts, labeled hats. Well, they had pocket knives, and you could put like Meaford Fire on the side. And so he put Meaford Fire, and he maybe even put the logo on the side, and he ordered a bunch. They're probably $3 each or something like that. And so he ordered 30 and gave everyone a folding pocket knife, which was the worst example of a folding pocket knife imaginable. I may have even made a video about it. But the point was, those knives, those folding knives, did not have reliable locks. All right. And there are a ton of cheap, Amazon, Canadian Tire, Walmart knives out there that don't have reliable locks, the gas station knives that are very, very dangerous. The fifth category that I want to touch on before we get to honorable mentions are dull knives, right? Dull knives, it's very well attested that a knife that's dull is more likely to cut you than a knife that's sharp. And I can tell you, this knife that I brought in as an example is super, super dull. And, I probably won't sharpen it, but I probably should sharpen it just because, there's a safety issue here, and a sharper knife is much, much safer. All right. A dull knife, because they require more pressure, because they're more difficult to cut with, because they put you in awkward situations, and they can even slide out. One time I saw someone get cut. I'll show you what happened. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way. So imagine someone was trying to cut a ham, and they had their hand on the end of the knife, and they put the knife into the ham like this. Well, the knife was so dull that it actually slid sideways off the ham and went right into their hand. I can't remember where it was, but I remember seeing, maybe it was even just their thumb, but it slid off right into the finger and cut them. And had it been a sharp knife that would just bite into the ham the minute you cut, that injury would not have happened. So there's a perfect example of why dull knives are more dangerous than sharp knives. Finally, let's do some honorable mentions, and that is knives with soft detents. There are a bunch of stories out there with where people have had a knife open in their pocket. I even have one myself. I'm trying to think of what knife it was, but I had a knife that opened just a little bit in my pocket like this, and the way my leg bent in this particular pair of pants, the tip of the knife just kind of poked into my skin a little bit. Didn't cut me seriously because I kind of felt it, knew exactly what it was the second it happened, and so I stopped what I was doing and opened it up. But that story's been told lots of times. There are also the same story about people reaching into their pocket, right? And the knife is open like this, and you reach into your pocket and the blade gets you. Okay, so knives with weak detents that don't stay closed, that's a danger. Knives in the hands of people who haven't been given any instruction, especially kids. I remember when my oldest son, Joel, was young, he grabbed my Skeletool and he was just looking at it. I remember he said, "Dad, can I open it?" And I thought he meant, "Can I open the pliers?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can open it." Well, he opened the knife. And when I said, no, don't open that, he went to close it, and it just closed on his finger a little bit and actually cut him pretty badly. Not bad enough to need stitches. We put a Band-Aid on it. Everything was fine. But people holding and using knives that haven't had any instruction, that can be a little sketchy. And so what are we talking about here, guys? Overall, there's a couple points that I want to make in conclusion. I hope this challenges some of your notions about what makes a knife dangerous, right? I've already asked you to tell me your stories down below, but I would also like to challenge you to notice that it's not the knives that look scary, just like it's not the guns that look scary, okay, that are actually to be worried about. The scary knives that you see out there don't cause any problems. And in fact, in many cases, knives that are specifically banned because people are afraid they're going to be used for crimes are safer than knives that are legal. Okay, so I've got to bring that point up again. Finally, just a closing word, and that is, if you have friends that are not into knives, try to gently expose them. Okay, there are lots of knives out there like this that are absolutely beautiful, and that anyone who, even if they don't know much about knives, I think anyone would at least appreciate the beauty of a knife like this. But expose them to the knife world, teach them about knife safety, and hopefully we can make our community grow. And it kind of is growing, right? There's pretty good statistics that the knife community is growing. We need to welcome more people in, share what we know, and encourage them to adopt the hobby as well. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.